Welcome, Norm Schilling, our Volume 5 and final presenter from our Facts and Fiction Luncheon, The Love of the Trees.
Yeah, I do want to thank you all for hanging in there, and I promised I wouldn't go over 10 minutes, so I'm sure I'm keeping under 30. Um, I'll aim for 9.5, though. I do want to say one thing. There was some talk about being really wise in irrigation, being very thoughtful about it, and being responsive to the environment as you think of how to irrigate. I worked for the water district for many years. My father was an engineer there. I was in the conservation department. I was very proud to be a part of that. And I'm a conservationist. I'm an environmentalist, deeply in my soul. In 1999, I was part of a team that came up with that card that you all get in the mail that say what days, what times a year you can water, how much, and how in the fall you're to cut back to 3 days. I'm here to tell you September is no longer the fall. September 1st last year, it was 205. It should have been 105 degrees, and that is not fall weather. When I got here in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, it was fall. It's not anymore, and they need to change with the time. I'm hoping that I can, as the final speaker, I can be kind of like the rodeo clown that John mentioned earlier, and hopefully I can wrap it up with a little bit of wisdom, but I'm really a little intimidated by the speakers that have preceded me. They really know their stuff. What I'm good at is, I think, trying for many years to educate people in down-to-earth language about how plants and trees work in your garden, in our landscapes, and in our urban forest. And I just want to talk about the trees and the lawns. Now, some species of trees will actually perform better when the lawn is removed. Mesquites, acacias, palo verdes, desert willows will often perform better when they're not on lawn water. But many of the species that we have in our urban forest, and many of which I like to refer to as our heritage trees, will perform much better. So basically, as you look at this picture, that's what really blows a lot of people away. And that amazed me when I first discovered this. We tended for many years to think of the root system of a tree to kind of mirror the canopy. It's this root system that goes very deep. But what it actually is, it's like a plate of roots, and most of those roots are in the top 2 feet of soil. In fact, 40% are in the top 6 inches, then 30% the next 6, 20%, 10%. Below 2 feet, there's not much root development because there's not much oxygen. But they extend out 1.5 to 4 times canopy diameter in the wild under rainfall. And given irrigation resources in our lawns, that's what they do. Plants are very smart. They're very responsive to their environment. And what they do is they develop their root system out to take best advantage of existing resources. So when we've had trees that have grown in our landscapes, in our homes, in our communities for many years with lawns, they've developed their root system to take best advantage of that. And when you take out that lawn, you risk doing severe damage to the very trees that you love. And whether you're taking it out and replacing it with a few little plants. So here's what we do as landscapers. We take the grass out, and here's all the roots, and then we put 3 or 4 emitters around the base of the tree. And then the tree's actually fine because, you did it in the fall, and then it goes through the winter, goes through the spring. Next summer, there's decline. And usually by the time you really see significant decline, it's too late because plants are so much like people. And the more stress they're under, the more likely they are to decline and die due to other causes. So you want to really keep your trees healthy in the first place. And the other ways that they're very similar to people is that I have grandkids, and the littlest one, his name's Oliver. He's about that big. He's really cute. He needs water. He needs nutrition. I need water and nutrition. I need a lot more than he does because of my size. Now, mind you, I could cut back on the nutrition just a little bit, That's a different matter. But trees are the same. As they grow, they require more water resources, and we need to provide those water resources. So here's another image. This is an overhead view showing you the spread of that root system. 1.5 to 4 times canopy diameter. Now, 4 times is probably extreme. It's probably 2, 2.5, 3 times for most trees. And then if you don't If you don't give them that water, this is what happens. These are all trees that have gone through the conversion process. They put a few emitters. They share water resources with those other plants, but they are in decline and they are in death. They're in the spiral of death. There's no saving them. I decided this would be a hill that I would fight and die upon, or might maybe get a little wounded. I have been a big ally of the SNWA, and I've had very good relations with them in the Water District and the Springs Preserve. And so it was with some personal risk that I decided to speak out. But this is our community, and this is our urban forest, and your trees are my trees, and my trees are yours. And they are at the forefront of trying to stave off the climate change and the warming of our community, part of which is the urban heat island effect, and part of it is the changing climate. And we really need to take care of our urban forest. So my big beef with the SNWA is somehow they've decided that grass is the boogeyman. It's all about the grass. And as we've seen from our speakers today, turf can be grass. Real grass can be, I always called it turf. It's turf, but now there's artificial turf. I don't want to confuse the two. Grass lawns, well managed, can use a minimal amount of water. It does take water, but it also contributes so much in soils and in wildlife and in the cooling of the environment and in the protection and nurturing of our landscapes. And it's not just the trees in the lawn, it's the trees by the lawn. And it's not just the trees, it's the shrubs by the lawn. And I've seen so many properties decline in value and beauty and coolness because of a misguided attempt to do what's environmentally right based on the fear-mongering that has been presented to us by the LVVWD and the SNWA. And what we need to do is we need to stand up to them and say, this is not how we want to live. We want to have a community that's responsible, that's environmentally conscientious. And we want you, please, the SNWA and the LVVWD, to lead that charge because you have the resources. So rather than spending millions of dollars on advertisements where a hockey player comes up to you and punches you in the mouth because you got water on the sidewalk, how dare you? What they should do is take those millions of dollars and create a really thoughtful program to educate us how to take this community from where we are today to where we want to be. And bit by bit, we can be more and more conscientious and water conservative without destroying the quality of our life or our environment. So, thank you. So I want to finish with this. And I did a bit of research, and there's just, God, as I read more about it, I became more frightened. Look, I worked at the city dump for 3 years. I've had an illustrious and interesting career here in southern Nevada. So I'm not, I stood in fields of carcinogens, But about 4 or 5 months ago, I was doing a consultation at a nice property, and across the street, they had obviously just undergone a conversion process. They had taken out the lawn, and there was a nice wide land. I won't say nice. There was a wide expanse of artificial turf that had been put in, obviously replacing real grass sometime in the recent past. And I could tell because the curbing was there. That's always there when you have grass, right? So they just ripped out the grass, they put in the artificial turf, and now it's much hotter. And by the way, those figures are real. When I worked at UNLV, they took out the the grass for the practice football field, and we went out there with a thermometer, and the temperature was literally 165 degrees at the base, and that's what we want our football players to play on. Well, here in this diagram, you see what's happening. So artificial turf is like it's like carpet, right? If we have 7 leaves on this carpet, somebody's going to come and clean it up, right? Immediately. You can't have that. Well, you can't have leaves on artificial turf. Now look, if that was a lawn, do you think you'd even see those leaves? You would not. But what I saw that day, it was a big expansive lawn, and there were 2 groundskeepers, 2 landscape workers, and they had their blowers out, and there wasn't a lot of leaves. There might have been 100 leaves on that lawn, and they were chasing them all out into the sidewalk and into the street. Now, I started in landscape maintenance, and I ran those blowers, and that's what we do. We run it out there, and if there's just a little bit, somebody's going to come, the street sweeper's going to come pick it up. Great. If there's a lot, maybe we'll sweep it up so nobody yells at us. What I realized is when you take plastic and you put it in the sun, the dry heat of southern Nevada, what happens to plastic? It breaks down. And I've been hearing about microplastic and our consumption of microplastic and the chemicals that are in there, including the PFAS and the PFOS and all the other benzene, and there's a list here somewhere in my pocket, I don't know, it's horrid. And what they're doing is they're taking all those microplastics and they're kicking them up in the air. And all that plastic, that rubber infill, they're kicking that into the air. And what they're doing is they're blowing it out into the street. And then when the rain comes, one of 2 things is going to happen. What's more likely to come is a car. That car will kick it up and throw it up in the air, and then you're going to come by and walk your dog and breathe it in. Or you're going to get it on your skin and you're going to absorb it in. Or, worse yet, the rain will come, and it will wash all those microplastics in the street, all those chemicals, into the gutter, take it out to the lake. Cheers. We're going to drink it. So, we have a moral obligation for ourselves, our families, and our community to say, enough is enough. You have fed us a line of bull. You have punished those of us who have larger properties. You have punished the families who purchased a beautiful half-acre with lawn, with a walnut, with an almond, with some nice healthy ash trees. And now that family has to make a decision between paying the water bill and paying their mortgage. And then those trees are going to die. And those are my trees, and those are yours. And this is our community, and we need to fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that you found this informational, educational, and inspirational. And if you did, please consider joining us, registering for our organization, and making a contribution so that we may further educate and expand this knowledge throughout the community. It is an important effort. We want to preserve our quality of life here in Southern Nevada. We are a growing community, but we need to grow smartly, and growth needs to pay for itself. Please consider a donation to the Water Fairness Coalition. Thank you for your time and your attention.